This is episode 76 of the After Gambling Podcast, and it's also the start of season 6 and a whole new beginning for the podcast. Hey there, and welcome to the After Gambling Podcast. My name is Jamie. I am a former problem gambler that now hasn't gambled since July 15th of 2010, so over 10 and a half years as I record this here in March of 2021. And I put together this little podcast as an idea to help other people that were struggling with gambling or that may know somebody that was struggling with gambling to get some information to get them started on their journey. Now, for those of you that are new here and even the people that have been around for a while, I wanted to share some insight and create a new foundation, a new starting point for the podcast as we move forward, because it was just time for an update. And there's some new thoughts and ideas that I have. And ultimately, I just want to build the absolute greatest resource there is as a foundational tool to help people get started on the path towards recovery. And I have to say that this is inspired by you, the listeners. I've seen what you've done with this podcast, with other podcasts, with the Reddit group, with online GA meetings, with going to virtual therapy, the whole 9 yards. And you've inspired the hell out of me to get started again with this and to update it, make it even better. And like I said, your inspiration to me, I'm half jealous. I'm not going to lie. I'm half jealous of all the tools that you have available to you, but I've seen the results. And it's just something that as this stuff was kind of ticking in my head and I was thinking about it the last few months, I'm like, this is incredible. There's such a great opportunity ahead to use these tools and make them even bigger and better than they already are, which is kind of hard to believe, but they are going to get better and better as we go on. And ultimately, your results, you guys are killing it. I see you guys posting, and I know people that are on 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, many years, but especially the people that, at least just in the time that I've done the podcast, that started listening early on or in the last couple of years, and they'll message me, and I'm just blown away by how successful they are. And because they are doing the work, and obviously I'd like to think that I put some thoughts in their head or laid a foundation to help them move and start that journey, but they're doing the work. Don't get me wrong. They are the ones that are doing the work. If you're listening to this, you can do the work, or somebody you know and love can do the work too. I'm just here to provide you with that kickstart, to provide you with the information, create a little bridge to recovery, as I like to say, the foundational, give you kind of a blueprint to let you know the lay of the land, but also give you some inspiration. My story and the story of so many people that I've interviewed over the last 3 years should provide you with insight, information. It's going to connect with you. You're going to feel differently. You're not going to feel alone. And you're going to have some ideas that you can use as you move forward in your life. And as I said, I want this to be the greatest resource that everybody in the world, like almost you'd be viewed as incompetent if you didn't say, hey, go check out, start at episode 76 of the After Gambling Podcast. Use that to get that information into your head, digest it, let it marinate, do all those fun things as a starting point. Because we need that starting point. Because it's so difficult to just kind of go out and do this alone. And by having this podcast, what you're going to have is you're going to have some stories that you can hear from me and from other people, as well as a blueprint of success that's worked for me and other people that you can use to help guide you as you go through this journey. So yeah, I have pretty lofty expectations for this, right? I want this to be the greatest resource in the world. And I also am going to be sharing a lot of the stuff that in the past, maybe I was hesitant to share, but that I've seen work personally, or that I have other people that have told me, hey, this really works for me. Because some of it goes against common convention. But I want to throw this out there so that you have as much information as possible that you can sift through and decide what works for you. Because, hey, what works for Jamie might not work for you, and that's cool. Or what works for my buddy Andy might not work for me. But the important thing is to have a resource like this where you can just soak up as much information and digest and say, hey, I like that. I don't like that. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. And you slowly start to build your own custom plan. And my stuff is just the foundation to provide you with inspiration. Like I say at the end, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a financial planner. but I have lived this, and I've seen thousands of other people that have lived this. So I can provide you with that insight just to give you an idea and inspiration to get started. Then you can go out and seek those professionals to help you address your specific situation. But you're going to do it with a whole different mindset and a whole different approach after listening to this podcast. Now, why do I believe that this can be such a great resource? Well, I said earlier, I've seen the results, and it's confirmed what I believed so many years ago when I first thought about doing this podcast. For those that don't know, I'm a marketer, but more so, I'm a podcast listener. And I listened to podcasts and I connected with podcasts on a level that I just didn't with other things. There's the voice, the animation, the emotion that comes through when you hear somebody's voice tell the story, share their thoughts, share their views, share what they've been through. You just don't get that. And now we get that with video, but video has some downsides to it. One, you have to have the screen up. You have to be watching. Like even on YouTube, when I click off YouTube or shut down my phone, it stops the video from playing. Now podcasts are great because you can literally throw in your earbuds and you can do work. You can do yard work. I listen to podcasts when I'm going on walks, when I'm mowing the yard. I'm doing all sorts of different things where I don't need to have full attention on the task, or they're kind of like other things I'm just kind of doing, right? And it's a great way to connect and get through them and really kind of soak up a lot of information in a short amount of time. And that's why I love audiobooks. Audiobooks are the same way. And if you follow me at all, you know I love Audible. I have an Audible app full of great books for the same reason. I can go on a walk, or I can do these chores around the house, and I can kind of listen passively. And I can kind of get these good vibes, these good pieces of information into my head, let them process, let them marinate, let them soak in and try them. And I can go back and listen to them again. It's something that I'm able to consume just for me. A whole lot more information because it's delivered in audio form. So I think that's one of the biggest keys right up front, but it's not the biggest one. And especially when it comes to addiction, and this with gambling addiction, the biggest thing is it allows us all to have comfort. We can listen to the stories, and that's hopefully, you found this yourself, and I've listened to other podcasts. Brian's All In, the Addicted Gamblers podcast, which is an awesome tool. Definitely check out his podcast. His was one of the first ones I listened to, and I really was like, wow, I love the fact that I can listen and connect to his story, and like nobody around me has to know what I'm doing. So like if I was kind of doing something outside, going for a walk or whatever, it's not like, oh, there's Jamie with listening to a podcast trying to help his gambling addiction. There's no judgment. There's no shame. There's no stigma in that. And I know early on, that's a big thing, is shame and stigma. Now we're going to address those in kind of this reboot, but early on, we need to have these tools that make it easy, right? Why make it harder? Even going to a GA meeting is awesome. You should go to a GA meeting. I'm not telling you not to go. However, I know how much energy and emotion that took out of me to go. And I also didn't know what I was getting into. There's a reason why one of the best, most highly downloaded episodes and watched episodes is What's a GA Meeting Like? I have a blog post on that. That gets more hits than anything else because we're curious. It's not that we don't want to go, but we're not sure what we're getting ourselves into. And the same with recovery. Like, what's a GA meeting like? What am I going to be like in recovery? How do I do this? How do I approach this situation? All those things I've been able to pick up over the years from other people. I hear their stories. I hear what they do, and I apply that to my life. And like I said, now with podcasts, you can hear other people's stories, or you can go on Zoom meetings and you can go to all these ones and you can soak in all that information in such a short time frame that I think it really speeds up the process. There was a time when I was a little bit worried about seeing how fast some people were recovering. It's like, is that too fast? Like, are they am I setting them up for failure? Are they going to struggle down the road? And I would always kind of point out, because I know, and this is never a straight line, but these people were really on the accelerated path. True overachievers. And I was kind of blown away by it. But what I've kind of seen now is that they're doing all the work. These are the people that are on Reddit. They're going to GA meetings. I'm in some of them with them. I see them. They're listening to podcasts, mine and other ones. They're getting involved in discussions. They're active in their recovery. And by doing that and using all these tools that they have available, they're crushing it. They're moving beyond their addiction at a pace that is much faster than was possible even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So it's just really cool to see that idea that I had many years ago when the light bulb went off and said, this is the best way to deliver content to people that are extremely hard to reach. I know how I was. It was only when I was in those lowest of lows that I might Google search and try and look out for help, right? And then even then, like, we're clearing Google searches, or like, I have a friend and they always talk about how they would delete the episodes from their phones so that their spouse wouldn't see what they were listening to. And we have to hide all that stuff. And so by doing the podcast, it's just one of those things where we provide a comfort where I can deliver messaging and ideas to you and inspiration to you in a way. And other people, all the other podcasts, it's brilliant to see all these other podcasts pop up because they're doing the exact same thing. They're delivering great content, great messaging to people in a way that's comfortable. So it's with all this in mind that I come back to the podcast now again, renewed with some new energy, some fresh ideas, which I think are always important. So with this season that I'm going to be releasing, and these are going to come out in rapid succession. So don't expect, I'm going to say up front, don't expect this to go on for months and months. This is going to be more like a book where I'm going to put out a ton of episodes here in this next month, 2 months, which will be kind of a complete series within that covers just about everything that's on my mind. I'm going to try and clear my mind, kind of get everything that's in my head that I believe to be true out there so that you can use it for your situation to start to run those things through your mind, pick and choose what you like. But even the things, I mean, if you choose not to do it today, have that as an idea of something that you might do in the future if your plan doesn't work. So this will be a quick burst of tons of content, hopefully that delivers you a ton of value, hopefully that you can use then to implement into your life instantly. And hopefully it provides you with that inspiration you need to pick up the phone, see if your state offers free counseling, or reach out and do some telehealth, or jump on one of the Zoom meetings, one of the GA Zoom meetings, or listen to other podcasts, or talk to somebody that you know in your life about it. Again, this is the bridge. This is the starting point. I'm going to try and provide you with ideas that you can then take out and apply to your situation with the loved ones and the professionals that are in your network. And then the last thing I want to say is that please understand that, yes, I share all these things and I'm at 10 and a half years. It's taken a lot of work, a lot of time and personal development, reading different books, running things through my mind, challenging my current thoughts. And it's been difficult. There's always difficult times. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not going to be this easy thing all the time. I am going to try and give you all of the insight that I have today. And a lot of it, I'm saying, isn't going to make sense to you, maybe. Maybe it's stuff that you hear and you're like, no, I don't like that. And that's fine. Please, just all I ask of you is that you keep these things in mind, keep an open mind as you go through. Because one of the things, when I look back, there are a lot of mistakes that I made where I was like, okay, no, that doesn't fit my current belief system and narrative. I mean, there's a story that I have from GA, or there's a story that I have from this person, and I trust them so much. But I would just completely discard some of these other ideas rather than saying, okay, well, I don't know, how would that work? So as I did a conference presentation a couple of years ago about being curious enough, just I encourage you, be curious about your situation. When I say stuff that you're like, Jamie, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's opposite of what everybody else is saying. You must be wrong. Sure, maybe I am. All I'm asking you is just to be curious and think through and say, okay, well, maybe he's at a place where he sees something differently. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. By all means, when I say something and it just doesn't jive with you, message me. Let's talk about it. This is all about having a discussion. I mean, discussion is the way forward, not just blocking out ideas that we disagree with. And like I said, I say this from personal experience because I know I've mentioned before that the first time somebody said, hey, stop being depressed. Like you're down all the time. And I was like, it's not something I'm choosing to be, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of fired back in that. But then they said, no, you're choosing to be in a mood and to focus on things that are upsetting you. And with time, it took time, but I realized they were right. They were absolutely right. Or the time when somebody talked about how they were recovered from gambling, how they were a problem gambler, but now they've fully recovered. And I was like, you never fully recover from gambling. It's something that you're stuck with for the rest of your life. It's just part of you. And at the time, I didn't understand what they were saying. Now I do. I do think that we can get to that end goal. And I'll talk about that in one of the upcoming episodes. But like I said, don't be like I was. My advice, is to have an open mind now. And that's a lot of people see me and they see the things I think and say, and I'm pretty damn free. Sometimes a little bit, probably too much with my thoughts and views. But that's come because I've over time learned how to separate my thoughts and my emotions in a lot of ways, and my views and my emotions. So I no longer get emotionally caught up into, okay, what is this saying about me? If this is true. And all I really want to know, I just want to know, is it factual? Is it true or false? Or could it be true? Or, I mean, if I see something, how might it not be true? Like, and I'm always questioning those things, but I've been able to strip out the emotions, mainly because I have 10 and a half years. It's not fresh, right? I have that advantage. So just understand that when you go through and you hear me say something, suspend judgment, assume that I've thought through the other side of it. And like I said, message me and say, hey, I don't think you see this, and we can have a discussion about it. But it's one of those things that I've gone through these stages, and I'm just to the point now where I don't want to hold back. I want to share what I think, even if it means being ridiculed or accused of being wrong or misleading people. Because if you listen to this, I've done this for 3 years. It's not something I do for any reason other than I'm trying to help people. So I guess you could fault me for maybe I don't know something, and we can have a discussion on that. And by all means, if I realize that I'm doing something in error, I will correct it and own it and talk about it on the podcast and share those thoughts. But ultimately, I don't think there's a one size fits all solution. And I don't think that there are these things that we can't talk about. I think we should be able to get to the place where we can talk about anything. I know early on, I was kind of protected. I was kind of bubble wrapped. My GA group kind of bubble wrapped me. And there's some good things that came out of that. But over time, they also created some tension that grew and grew until it was like, man, I've got to go out and see if there's people that believe other things, or that maybe see this exact situation in a different light. Not because they were right or wrong, but I just needed to know. I needed to explore it. As long as I had that kind of contradiction in my head, I was always going to struggle. So if you've been kind of struggling with some of those things, throw me a topic, or I'll probably cover it. But throw me a topic and we'll talk about some of the stuff that's tougher to talk about, that people are kind of avoiding because they're afraid of upsetting people. So I'm just kind of laying the foundation. Don't let this upset you. If it upsets you, turn it off, or email me. Better yet, the best thing you could do is email me so we can talk through it. Because if you just turn it off, that doesn't do anybody any good. Maybe you didn't see something I was seeing, or definitely I'm not going to be able to see something you're seeing from it if you just shut down and don't have a conversation about it. And then ultimately, it's just like the name of the podcast. This is the After Gambling Podcast. My goal is for you to have the greatest life after gambling that you can possibly live. Because that's what I want for myself. I want to be able to move beyond my days of gambling to achieve and to feel free. And it's something that I now feel and experience on a day-to-day basis. And I want that for everybody else. I want to return to a life after gambling. There's a freedom in that, a freedom that goes beyond just gambling to all other products that I have experienced over the last probably 6 to 12 months at much greater levels. And I'm just really excited to share because it's done so much for me, and I hope it can be as valuable and as effective in your life. So as always, thanks for tuning in. You know, my goal is just to help people. Hopefully you know that by now. Like I said, reach out to me if I ever upset you so we can have a conversation, but give me the benefit of the doubt. That's what I ask of you, is just kind of give me a chance to hear me out, to hear what I'm saying about something, instead of just clicking it off. Because I think we've gotten to a point in life where it's just cancel culture, right? Where it's like, okay, they said something, I disagree with it, shut them off, cancel them, light up the torches and go after them with the mob. And I just don't see what that does for anybody. It doesn't extend the conversation. It doesn't resolve the situation. It just fires it up and creates a lose-lose situation, in my opinion, where nobody really ends up any further ahead. And ultimately, if you know one thing about me, it's that I am obsessed with getting better. Kaizen. It was one of the first things when I heard that in high school, what that term meant, which is constant improvement. Always looking for new and different, better ways to do something. That's what I'm all about. So that's why I poke holes. I try to poke holes in things because I want to dive deeper. I want to explore them. I want to be creative and see if there is a better solution out there. And if we find out that there isn't, then we go back to the old way. But we never know if we don't push further. So yeah, I'm excited to rock and roll with this relaunch here. If it's your first time, what I would say is definitely start here. Move your way towards the most current episode, and then you can go back into the archives and start at the very beginning. You can hear some of my story, hear some of the views that I've had in the past. You'll probably laugh at some of the views have changed. Some of them have stayed consistent. But also those are full of great interviews with other people that are recovering from gambling addiction that just have so much. They have such inspirational stories and so much to share that really helps people. So that's kind of my lay of the land on how to handle these episodes as we go forward. But yeah, I just look forward to seeing you in future episodes. So remember, I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not anybody with letters before or after my name. So please use this for informational purposes, but please seek out professional help. I don't want to meet your lawyer. This is for informational purposes only. Don't come sue me. Lawyers and marketers, we ruin everything in the world. So yeah, I'm just trying to share my story so that you can kind of use it to help kickstart your journey and make some decisions as you move forward. But it is for informational purposes only. And then finally, music for the show is Something Elated by Broke for Free and is licensed under the Creative Commons license. I'm Jamie, former problem gambler, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.